Well, it's getting on past dark here, and I'm just getting to Granny Shares, but I'm glad to do it today. I've been to the nursing home and to the jail, and we've been singing Christmas carols and enjoying the thought that God gave us the first Christmas present. He's so good, isn't he? Get to give us Jesus. So I'm going to start in Exodus chapter 34 and verse 15. And I'll read verse 14 first. For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. And thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a whoring after their gods. Thou shalt make thee no molten gods. So God was telling, this has made me jealous for you to make a golden calf. And you better not make any more. No more golden calves. And you better not make anything for you to worship, a molten something for you to worship. And he was warning them against living among a people that did not worship him. He was warning them about living among those people, because they were going to worship their gods, which were false gods. They were going to worship them, and they're going to get you to worship them. And you were going to give them your sons for their daughters, and your daughters for their sons, and pretty soon they're going to be running after worshiping them, those gods, instead of the true and the living God. Verse 18, God knew that these people, that's what they were going to do. He knew they were going to do it. But he was making them know that that wasn't what they should do. And he didn't want them to do that. And he was jealous of them doing it. And they better not do it. So he's trying to tell them ahead of time before they do it. And they've already done it. Now, when they get their land, there were going to be people there that worshipped other gods. And they were going to end up doing it because they were going to become part of their families and worshiping gods. Idol gods. Verse 18 says, The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee in the time of the month Abib. For in the month Abib thou camest out from Egypt. So he's talking about that feast of unleavened bread, where they didn't use leaven in their bread because they were coming out of Egypt and didn't have time to leaven their bread. And he called it the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And we call it the Passover. And so he said in the month Abib, for in the month Abib thou camest out from Egypt. And we know that Abib, it seems to be right around March and April. That's when the time of the Passover is. It has to do with the full moon. And I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that moon, but all I know in that month, that they celebrate the Passover. Now, we know that our Easter comes about at the same time. Why is that? Because Jesus was crucified right at the time of the Passover, because he was the true Passover lamb. And that's why our Easter celebration comes around at the same time, or near the same time of the Passover. Verse 19, All that openeth the matrix is mine, and every firstling among thy cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. But the firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb, and if thou shalt redeem him not, then shalt thou break his neck. All the firstborn of thy sons thou shalt redeem, and none shall appear before me empty. So God was claiming the firstling of everything. The firstborn, male, the male, whether ox or sheep, that is male. So he was claiming the firstborn sons of every animal and of the people. And that you would redeem them. The firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb. So you sacrifice a lamb for the firstling of an ass, and if you didn't, you got to break his neck. He's going to die. So, and he said, all the firstborn of thy sons thou shalt redeem, and none shall appear before me empty. None shall appear before me empty means you have to bring something to sacrifice, and I'll give you that something you need. You don't have to worry about not having it. You'll have it. I feel like that God was saying that both situations, that I don't want you to come before me without anything, but I'm going to make sure you have what you need. He's always done that for me. He's always given me what I needed. In fact, he's told me and Michael sometimes, he told us, get what you need. And if it was going to cost money and we were going to have to spend that money, he would still say, get what you need. That's the way God is. He's going to supply what you need, and you can get it. 21 says, 6 days thou shalt work, but on the 7th day thou shalt rest. In earing time and in harvest thou shalt rest. So even if you want to get out there and harvest, that grain is completely just right to harvest, don't work on the 7th day, he said. 6 days thou shalt work, but not on the 7th. In earing time and in harvest thou shalt rest. And thou shalt observe the feast of weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the year's end. So God was showing them that there's 3 feasts that he wanted them to gather for. And this one was the feast of the harvest. Thou shalt observe the feast of the weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the year's end. So there was the feast of weeks, and then there was the feast of the harvest at year's end. Those are the 3 times that he said, thrice in the year shall all your men children appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. For I will cast out the nations before thee, and enlarge thy borders. Neither shall any man desire thy land when thou shalt go up to appear before the Lord thy God thrice in the year. Thou shalt not offer. So let's stop before we go to 25. And let's just say this, that God wanted them to gather together 3 times in the year. And that was important for those 3 feasts, to keep them close to him, to keep them close to his commandments and his ways. And so he said that they had to appear before him, and he would not let anybody come and desire their land and take it while they were at the feast, those feasts. So he was going to watch over their land for them while they were gone. Verse 25 says, thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, neither shall the sacrifice of the first of the feast of the Passover be left unto the morning. The first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of the Lord thy God. And then he said, thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. So God is beginning to give laws. The law of God to the people. And he was making them know when the feasts were, and he was making them know that they were not supposed to offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven. They were supposed to only use unleavened bread. Neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left unto the morning. We know that they had to burn it. If it was left unto the morning, it had to be burnt. It couldn't be eaten. And then he said, the first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of the Lord thy God. So you're supposed to give the first of the first fruits. And that's where we come to the place where we talk about taking whatever the Lord gives us and giving him a tenth, giving him a tithe. And when you do that, when you give the Lord his part first, then he'll bless the rest. That's what he has always done for me. He's always done for us. And so as soon as you get your money, say you're making your living, you give the Lord his tithe and maybe set a little bit aside for offering, and then you pay your bills and use the money that he gives you. And this chapter here seems to be saying, I'm going to provide, but do your part, and do your part the way you're supposed to. And then he said, thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. To me, only God would see that. You might know it. You might know that you've killed the little goat, little baby goat, and now you're boiling it in his mother's milk. That's pitiful, isn't it? And God didn't want anything like that happening. Now, from a lot of these things, the Jews get their kosher laws where they just take it on and on and on, like you don't eat this certain thing, But really, God was just saying, you have pity, realize that's too hard to look at, or too hard to be a part of, is seething a kid in his mother's milk. The Lord is tenderhearted. That's what he's saying. That it's part of life to eat flesh, to eat animals. He didn't say we couldn't, but he wanted us to be as compassionate as we could in doing it. And verse 27 said, and the Lord said unto Moses, write thou these words, for after the tenor of these words I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel. And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water, and he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. So when it's saying he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights, he did neither eat bread nor drink water. That's referring to Moses. And he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. I believe that's referring to God, because God again wrote those tables. In verse 29, and it came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses wist not that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come nigh him. I have had an experience like that. I know it was a very troubled time in my life, and I was in the hospital. It was when I had tried to take my own life. I don't know if some of you might not know about that, but when I was, before I got saved, I had been in that bad sin, and the devil had got a hold of me and made me feel like that I was no good, and had me worked on me until I tried to take my life. And I was in the hospital, and when Michael, my husband, came to visit me, he had asked the Lord to save him at that time. He didn't know much about serving the Lord, and he really didn't hold on to it, but he had asked the Lord to save him because he had asked him to let me live. And when he would come to the hospital and he would look down at me, I saw a light shining out of his eyes. It was like a soft green light shining out of his eyes as he looked down at me. And so this that's talking about his face shining, I understand that God at times can use his glory to help somebody. It helped me. It helped me a lot to see Michael like that. It helped me to know that he loved me, and it helped me to know that God was moving in us and helping us. We needed it really bad at that time. Of course, I came through it all, and Michael did too. And even though he didn't hold on to the Lord then, I'd say he backslid, but he didn't know much about serving God. But later on, he really got his feet on the rock, and he served the Lord for the rest of his life, which was 30 years. But that was amazing that happened. But look, here's what happened to Moses when he came down off of the mountain. He didn't even know that his face was shining. But when he came down, it says, and Moses called unto them, and Aaron, all the rulers of the congregation, returned unto him, and Moses talked with them. So they were afraid to come nigh to him at first, but then Moses called to him, and they did. And afterward all the children of Israel came nigh, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. Until Moses had done speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. And when Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he took the veil off until he came out. And he came out and spake unto the children of Israel that which he was commanded. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face shone. And Moses put the veil upon his face again until he went in to speak with him. I do not know how long that lasted upon Moses' face. We know that it's referred to in the New Testament, referred to about how the children of Israel could not look upon Moses' face because of that veil, because of the shining, and that they had to have the veil. But we will dig in that tomorrow. I'm about out of time, and I think we'll come back and talk about this veil again tomorrow and look in where it speaks of it in the New Testament. So y'all have a good evening, and I will see you tomorrow, Lord willing.